And good morning, my beautiful America. Welcome back to the All American Book Club. I'm Eden Gordon Hill. We are live here in our very cold nation's capital, and that's partially because of weather and partially because of the government shutdown, which is affecting our military. Okay, so I'm going to be focusing on military veterans, our healing, talking about grief, talking about how to talk about that instead of pushing it under. So as you can tell, I'm very passionate about this because I take this very personally. So we have here for the very first time, Mindy Grant. She's going to be talking about her book, Becoming Unbroken. If you are watching on the YouTube channel, go over to mindygrant.com and we're going to be hearing all about Mindy. I feel like we already knew each other. This book took me longer, full disclosure, than most books because there are so many steps to healing through grief. And I don't want to mislead you on this book. It is a very powerful book. It has so many different layers to it, but we really need to talk about grief and how to become unbroken. So Mindy's going to help us break this down this morning. So thank you so much for being here, Mindy. I am so honored to know you.
I'm so honored to know you. This is so fun. I feel like you said, I feel like we've known each other. We've been communicating for a while.
Yeah,
And so I just am really honored to be on here with you. Thank you so much.
absolutely. Well, this is a perfect book for veterans. And this is a
Mhm.
perfect book for anybody who's going through any type of grief. And when I first read the title, Becoming Unbroken, I'm thinking, okay, what's this really about? And like I said to you and our audience, it took me a hot minute to finally finish it because, like I was jokingly saying with you, I do 4 and 5 books a week, but this one took me a little bit longer. I didn't want to rush it. I didn't want to rush it. So, share with me, is this about you?
I get asked that a lot.
Yes,
The
I had to
story is
ask.
not, the story is not autobiographical. I'm honestly probably old enough to be Emmy's mother, but it's not autobiographical, but there are certainly elements of my story woven into Emmy's character. Some of the fun stuff, I love to travel. I love a good road trip. So that is definitely me.
Yes,
That's Penny Lane, the real
there's
Penny
Penny
Lane.
Lane.
You know? I love the beach. I love travel. Friendships, very close friendships are super important to me. I have two of my oldest girlfriends. We've known each other since we were 2 and 3 years old. And I got together last weekend, had a friend reunion with some of my friends that I've known since I was about 6 and 7 years old. We've been friends. So, friendship, travel, things like that are very important to me, and are definitely part of Emmy's character. But
Yes.
also, I have walked through loss and I've walked through grief. And while my journey through grief and loss is different than Emmy's, I think when you go through things like that, you experience things that are generally pretty universal, no matter what kind of loss. I lost my brother 18 years ago. My son's getting ready to turn 19, and he was just 3 months old when my brother died.
Hmm.
And so he never met my daughter, and so that was the first really big loss. And then I lost my husband 7.5 years ago to cancer. Became a single mom, which was never something I ever thought I would experience. And then I lost my mom actually just a couple of months ago. So like I said, I've walked through loss like Emmy has. It's different, but I do think that there are things about grief and loss that are generally pretty universal. So while it's not autobiographical, you
Yeah.
write what you know. And even though you may tweak it a little bit to fit the character and the story, I feel like I know what Emmy's journey was about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's talk about Emmy. Let's talk about her brother. Let's talk about Penny Lane, who just made an appearance.
Yes.
Let's talk about her aunt and uncle. And basically, and just to set the stage, she was a military brat, and
Mhm.
her father was Navy and her brother was Marine Corps. And as you were talking about Camp Lejeune, I'm like, my husband and I have a house right behind Camp Lejeune. So we're right here and we are a huge part of this military community. So let's set the stage with those pieces. Go ahead.
I have a proud family history of military service. My grandfather, dad, and brother were all Marines. And I know once a Marine, always a
Always a
Marine.
Marine.
Still
Yep.
alive, but my grandfather and brother are not. So they were Marines. My grandfather was served in World War II. I have a great uncle who was injured at Guadalcanal in World War II. Grandfathers that served during Korea. My dad, couple of my uncles and several of my dad's cousins all served during Vietnam. My dad was stationed in the Philippines during Vietnam, but I have lots of other family who was stationed in Vietnam. I have cousins who served in Iraq and during the GWAT. I have a cousin who graduated from the Naval Academy and is a naval
Yep.
officer, another cousin who is in the Air Force, and I actually have a nephew that's currently serving in the Air Force. So
Mhm.
lots of military in my family. And I was not a military brat. My dad was injured very seriously in the Philippines. He broke his back and was medevaced home and left the service much earlier than he had anticipated. But
Mm.
so I wasn't a military brat, but I have friends who were. And so I leaned heavily on a couple of my friends for that element of moving around and things like that.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so while I didn't experience that, I know people who did, and but the the veteran aspect and the
Yes.
military aspect, that's something we've always been very proud of in our family.
Yeah.
Veterans Day, of course, is right after the Marine Corps birthday, something that we
Yes.
always recognized growing up.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
would always go to the cemetery and put down flags. My dad still does that with a group of men.
Mm.
And so, yeah, those were things that were really important to us growing up.
Well, you brought that out a lot in the book, and the impact of veterans, the impact of, so you bring in three things that are very important to the show: God, country, family.
Right.
And so you link that all very well as you read throughout the book. And as we're coming up on the Veterans Day holiday, but you know what? It shouldn't just be one day.
Right.
It needs to be 365. And I always say that, especially Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and honoring our military, honoring those who are serving right now, honoring those who have served. And you go through a lot of those aspects in this book. And but the greatest thing that we continue to see as a culture that we are confronted with is this ongoing suicide rate that continues to increase in our veterans, in our military. Let's not forget the active duty.
Right.
And the numbers continue to say, oh, 22 a day. It's such a great marketing tool, but it's really not, because it continues to increase.
Right.
And with all of these amazing veteran service organizations, all these new things that are happening for our military, so we can prevent the isolation aspect, we can help through the transition from service to civilian to inactive duty. All of these things have been set up for our service members, but yet we're still seeing this grief that is
Right.
either being combated by suicide or being combated with drugs, or the root of it,
Right.
a lot of the drugs. Talk to me about the grief steps that you highlight in this book, that, like you and I said, we're in a different generation. The generation before us did not talk about
Right.
feelings. Uh,
Right.
you go to church, like you said, you give it to God and you power through it. Well, God also gave us feelings and emotions, and He wants
Right.
us to heal. So let's
Right.
talk about some of those steps that you kind of walk us through in the book.
Well, what I learned through my own story, particularly after losing my husband, we had never done any counseling, and uh, I was on staff actually at a church at the time, all while my husband was sick and when he passed away. And we had a psychologist on staff at our church who came and immediately just offered his services to our family. And my kids knew his grandkids, my kids knew him, so they were very comfortable with him. And his PhD is in how trauma affects a child's brain. So
Mm,
when we started seeing him, which was the week after my husband's memorial service, he taught us, and I think this was the first time that I had heard that grief and trauma, they really are physiological. There
Yes.
is a physical element to it. It's not just in your mind. It's not just something that you can power through, but there is a physical element to it. And there are tools that you can use to help mitigate that, um, that you can use anywhere, that when you feel something coming on, that you can, like we were saying earlier, the tent in your
Yeah.
fingers, and because all the energy in your body is concentrated the most in your fingertips. So when
Right.
you put fingertip to fingertip, it helps to uh, channel that energy back through your body and help it to leave your core, which is when you're
Yes.
I had never ever dealt with anxiety or anything like that before my husband died. I knew people that did. And while I don't think I was ever particularly unkind to people in my life who dealt with that, I'm quite certain that I was of the school of thought that just pull yourself up by the bootstraps and
Right.
power on through.
Power through.
But the week after my husband's memorial service, I had a full on panic attack. It came out of nowhere. And if I hadn't suspected what was happening, I may have called 911 thinking I was having a heart attack.
Sure.
It was
Sure. Yeah.
that real.
Yeah.
And we just so happened to have our first appointment that night with this counselor I was just talking about. And when I explained to him what I had experienced, he was like, "Oh, that's a full-on panic attack. And
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is what happens, and your body goes into fight or flight, and the massive amounts of lactic acid that are being dumped into your core. And these are the things you can do to
Yeah.
help draw that out." So he really helped me to understand that it is physiological.
Yes.
And like I said, there are tools that you can use to help mitigate that and help get those, help work through those things. But I don't think that that has been a part of the conversation, certainly not for generations prior to ours. It was
Exactly.
this battle blues or shell shock, different things, and you just, oh, that's what grandpa deals with, and
Right.
you don't wake him when he's sleeping. And I'm glad to see that there is a shift, and there has been a shift toward things that we can do to practically help these people who are coming back from situations that I could never imagine. I can't
Yeah.
imagine being in a battle situation on a Tuesday and then
Right.
10 days later being in car line to pick your kids up from school with a
Exactly.
grocery list that you got to hit Target on your way home.
Yes.
So I think that we're doing a better job, but like you said, it is still something that needs a tremendous amount of focus and effort to
Yeah.
truly help men and women who are coming back, who need to transition, and even the older generation, saying to them,
Yes.
it is okay to acknowledge that what you went through was real and traumatic, and there are things that you can do to help work through that. So even though I'm not a veteran, I've experienced loss and I've experienced grief
Yes.
and I've experienced trauma, and in a very different way. But I'm only too happy to share the tools that I learned to help me get through and mitigate those experiences that are so
Yes.
awful that I do not want to replicate, and that I don't want anybody else I love to experience either and to struggle with.
Yeah, absolutely. When you put out this novel and you started putting it out there and it's very vulnerable. You were
Mm,
really kind of
yeah.
putting a lot out there on the line of, your journey and then
Mm.
Emmy's journey and coming out on the other side. What kind of responses did you start to receive when this came out? The thank yous, the stunned, commentary. What was it? What did people say to you?
Well, I kept this very close to the vest. There were fewer than 15 people in my whole world that knew that I was working on this, because it came to me. Sorry, I've got this little itch on my nose. It came to me, this idea, so strongly one evening, and I just couldn't shake it. I had never thought of writing a book before, but when my husband was sick, he had a blood cancer that was very rare that I had never even heard of before. So, when he was going through his treatments, which included a bone marrow transplant and all kinds of things that I had no experience with, um, he's from a pretty large, pretty tight-knit family, and I knew that everyone was going to want to know how things were going.
Sure.
So I decided to start a blog just to chronicle his treatment plan, how he was responding, and really, really just about the medical aspect of it. But as I started blogging and chronicling what that was like, I started chronicling more than just the physical parts of it. How we, what it was like the night we told our kids, what
Right.
it was like. We had to go actually live for 2 months in medical quarantine and be away from our kids. My mom flew up here and stayed with them, and they were young, they were in elementary school. And so, how that affected our family, the emotional aspects of it, not just the physical, but the emotional, the spiritual
Yeah.
aspects of it. And that was really when I discovered my love of writing. And
Mm.
so when I started this book, I didn't tell anybody about it because I had never written fiction before. And I didn't know if I was going to get halfway through it and hit a wall and not be able to finish. And I didn't want all
Yeah.
this external
Yeah.
pressure.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So I, after I finished it and when I published it and when I told people about it, most everyone expected that I was going to write a nonfiction story telling about our story. But I
Right.
felt like I had done that a lot through the blog.
Yeah.
And this idea came to me. I couldn't shake it. So I pounded the idea out in a late night email to my sister and I sent it to her. And she wakes up a lot earlier than I do. So when I got up the next morning, I had a response from her that was basically, go for it. You have to do this.
Mhm.
So I sat down and I didn't even know how to start writing a book, but I just sat down and I was like, okay, Lord, this is your story. You gave me this idea. And in 4 days, I wrote 10,000 words. And I
Oh my
just,
gosh.
I know that is the response of all the writers that I know. That's their response. And it took me 9 months, start to finish, to write this story. So I felt like it was giving birth to something that was a message that I was asked to tell, a story
Yes.
that I was
Yes.
asked to tell. And there were days that I would finish writing and I would read back through what I wrote and I would say, well, I didn't see that coming. That surprised me. I didn't see the story take that twist. So I
Yeah.
really felt like it was something that the Lord asked me to write about. And so the the path that it took and the roads that it meandered down, I didn't even really see coming. But
Yeah.
as the story unfolded, I began to realize that this was really more than just a fictional story to sit down and read under a blanket. It
Sure.
was really could be a tool to help
Oh,
people
absolutely.
in
Absolutely.
in what they were going through. And that is a lot of the feedback that I have gotten has been, thank you so much for telling a story and helping me realize I'm not the only one going through this. Helping me realize it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to,
You have been able to share this powerful personal journey with us. It almost seems to me that as you were writing it, this was almost your therapy.
it was so cathartic. It was very, very cathartic.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are, like I said, there are parts of the story that I cried when I read back through
Yeah.
it.
Oh, yeah.
And releases that I needed that I didn't even realize I needed.
Oh, yeah.
And that's so much of the feedback that I've gotten from people has just been, thank you for helping me to realize that it's okay to feel this way, that I'm not alone. It's okay to scream into,
Yes. Yes.
into the
Yes.
rain.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely. We have less than 30 seconds left. That's how fast this
oh
went.
gosh,
I
gosh,
know.
okay.
I know. I'm holding this up again. But please tell everybody where they can go purchase this book and how they can get involved with you on whatever socials, whatever's most powerful for you, where you like to hang out the most?
Gotcha. Well, mindygrant.com is my website.
Yep.
Very simple. You can buy the book Kindle or print on Amazon. So if you search Becoming Unbroken on Amazon, you will find it there. I love to hang out like you more on Instagram than
Yep.
Facebook. So
Yep.
Mindy Grant underscore author, or Mindy Grant author. If you search that, you'll find me there. You can also find me Mindy Grant author on Facebook. So yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I am so thankful to have you. I'm so thankful to
I'm
know
so
you.
honored.
Just a PS to this audience, you're coming back for my Christmas special. So
I
to see
am
you
very
again.
excited.
So I am so thankful. So for all of those who are tuning in, stay tuned for our next segment. We'll be right back, and go to mindygrant.com. You will not regret picking up Becoming Unbroken. Thanks, you guys. We'll be right back.